What's going on, everyone? In this episode, Zach and I react to and discuss one of athlean-x's most recent videos. The worst fitness and nutrition lies people still believe. In summary, the video consists of a series of highly controversial fitness myths that Jeff Cavaliere explains and either debunks or verifies.
What you see behind me is a collection of the most common beliefs in fitness and nutrition, and the problem is, some of these are just total BS.
Each of the myths are highly relevant and are still often debated or questioned today. In our conversation, Zach and I pick out what we think are the most interesting of those fitness myths and share our own insights revolving around each of them. Sometimes we agree with the athlean-x video, but sometimes we don't. So I think you're going to love it. Without further ado, let's dive in.
Okay, so Sam, out of the 21 or 22 things that Jeff listed as the worst fitness and nutrition lies people still believe, the first one that really stuck out to me that I think I kind of really resonated with was the fourth one: fasted cardio burns more fat. So I don't know if that was one of the ones that really reached out to you, but I think, I love to work out fasted. Now I think he mentions it's like a question mark on his, like, kind of half truth, half not. I don't really know the full science behind it all, but I think just for me, it just really helps me with the calorie consumption throughout the day. So by just being fasted and doing my workouts in the morning, I just wait to eat. So I'm not overeating, because I think if I get a meal beforehand, I'm not going to work off that many calories, and then I'm going to still be hungry at the same time I would. So it's a little bit easier for me. But I will say, I don't have enough data yet for my lifting, if it actually changes my performance, because I do lift in the mornings. If I was lifting in the afternoons, obviously I wouldn't be fasted. I would eat something beforehand. But I know with the marathon prep I've been doing, if I'm running anything over 6 miles, I will eat something, even if it is in the morning. So it's not a hard fast rule for me, but I know when I was losing all my weight loss transformation, I did every cardio session fasted, especially if it was just like incline walking. So do you think it's true, not true? What are your feeling about it?
As far as the result that you get from it, so like comparing doing it fasted versus not doing it fasted, I think that you can get the same result if all other variables are the same. So the total deficit over the course of the day is the same. I think it boils down to kind of what you described, personal preference on if you decide that you want to do it or not. So like you noted, or I'll answer it for myself. So like if I were to do cardio regularly, like run on a treadmill, for example, I would
Say it ain't so.
yeah, I would probably prefer to do it fasted, not because it burns more fat per se, or it will lead me to burning extra body fat, like there's some kind of special fat burning effect from that. But I would probably prefer to do that because I just flat out have an empty stomach and I wouldn't get a cramp.
Yeah.
And I would feel lighter. And I can just envision myself doing it like after I've had a meal or two, or like at the end of the day when I'm tired. Personally, I'd probably feel more uncomfortable doing it that way. So my own
Yeah.
personal preference would be to do it fasted. But as far as would you actually lose body fat faster or more efficiently from doing it before you do anything else, before you eat a meal? No, you get the same result as
Yeah.
if you did it at another time of the day. The point that he brings up, which is true, is that if you do cardio at a fasted state, the body probably would use adipose tissue, body fat as as a main energy source to do the activity of the cardio, versus if you were to do the cardio after eating, where you've eaten carbohydrates. So you'd have like your blood sugar levels would be spiked up. You might have a little bit more muscle glycogen. Your body would be more likely to use the glycogen or the glucose as
Mhm.
an energy source because it just entered your system. But overall, whether you have the body fat as being the main energy source, or the glycogen or the glucose from the carbohydrates, or the combination of fat and protein that you would eat in a meal, you end up getting the same result. You end up
Yeah.
still burning the same number of calories. The end result is still you end up losing the same amount of body fat.
Yeah, no, I
So I
agree.
think
I
it
think
boils
it's
down to
Yeah, I think it's more of a mental thing, how you feel about it. And also, you brought up the point I forgot about, like how you feel with food in you or not. Just like, I know if I eat the wrong thing or whatever, it feels heavy, just sluggish and get a cramp. Yeah. So I totally agree with it.
yep, that would be me too.
Yes.
Sweet. So
What's
I
your
think
first one?
okay, my first one is there are no bad exercises.
I have that
So
one
I think
too.
oh, nice. Okay. So I think what he said was
There are.
that's false. There
Yeah.
are bad exercises. So interesting. The example that I think he used was upright rows. Upright rows are a bad exercise. I actually disagreed with him on that.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there are bad exercises, and I'll explain why. But I don't think that like an upright row and saying that is universally a bad exercise for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. I don't think that's true. I think that element is false. So, for example, there's so many different ways you can do an upright row. Like you can
Yeah.
use a
It's
barbell with your
nuance.
hands.
Yeah.
Yes, you can use a rope. You can use kettlebells. You can use dumbbells. There's a million different ways that you can do it, different variations, and you can find different individuals might be able to find ways of doing it that is comfortable where they
Mhm.
don't experience shoulder impingement when they do it. Myself, for example, I developed probably the best mind muscle connection I'd ever had up to the point of having started to do those like religiously. So
Yeah.
this was relatively recently within the last few years. I started doing them with kettlebells.
Oh.
And that really helped me develop my mind muscle connection with my delts. And it actually helped me with my learn how to do lateral raises more efficiently. And it didn't cause shoulder impingement for me the way that I was doing it. If I did it in a different way, like where I used a different grip or a wider grip or a more narrow grip, could have been the case, but the way that I was doing it worked great. So I didn't like the example that he used, but
Yeah.
I do think there are some exercises, or I should say, like there might be some people where no matter how they do it, it could cause shoulder impingement or pain,
Mhm.
and yeah, then it's bad in that specific context. But it depends on the exercise and it depends on the specific person, just depends on the
Yeah.
context. What I would describe as being a bad exercise would be an exercise where you're trying to accomplish a specific goal, like stimulate for muscle growth, but the exercise itself doesn't efficiently lead to that end. So, for example,
Mhm.
doing squats on a Bosu ball on an unstable surface, I think is a bad exercise if you're trying to build muscle.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
When you do an exercise like that on an unstable surface, it reduces the amount, or it inhibits the amount of force that your muscles can produce because you are on an unstable surface. And that's not good for muscle growth. You want
Mhm. Mhm.
your muscles to produce lots of force because that's how they experience mechanical tension, and that's the primary driver of muscle growth. So doing something like squats on a Bosu ball, probably not a good idea because you're just not going to be able to get as much mechanical tension from doing that. Maybe there's some reason where that could be
Mhm.
helpful, but not for building muscle. So in that context, I think that that exercise would be
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
What are some of your
So
thoughts?
interesting because like I had that one as well, but I said I think there are no bad exercises, so I disagree with them. Um, but as you were talking about it kind of the same way. In my justification, the reason why is because of the definitiveness of the statement is what I don't like, right? So I don't think an exercise by itself can be, bad. If it's working something, it could be good. It's just I think it really depends on someone's goals, what they're training for. So like you clarified with like muscle growth specifically, but maybe they're trying to work on stability and core. Maybe it's like a performance of a certain sport or something that they're trying to work towards. And then I think even specifically when he's talking about like rows and stuff like that, I think it also depends on your weight that you're doing, because the exercise might not be bad. It might just be people ego lift it too much. Maybe they're not flexible enough to work that. The technique could lead to doing wrong technique a lot of times. So I don't think the exercise by itself can be bad. I think how we perform them, what we choose to do on certain goals that we're doing might not be optimal. It might just be like junk volume. It might just be extra stuff, but I don't think that's necessarily quote unquote like bad. So that's kind of how I had I think you did a better job at like defining specifically for this one goal. Like, yes, there's probably more optimal things, and some things just don't need to be done at all.
Yeah,
So
I think I'm on the same page as you.
yeah,
I think it's like it boils down to context, but you're right. Like you can make an argument for a lot of exercises, maybe all exercises, that they've got a time and a place.
yeah. And I would also argue
There's
like all exercise is better than no exercise. I think. Like, I don't know. If it is truly a bad exercise, we would almost say it's better than to do nothing than it. If it's bad, it's a negative. But I would argue it's would you rather have someone do a squat on a Bosa ball or no squats at all ever? Like, like I would say, well, at least they're doing something. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a good
So,
point. It makes me think. I mean, our last discussion was about optimal training,
yeah.
right?
Not
You can
optimal. Yeah.
not optimal, but like it makes me think. You can make an argument that practically every exercise is like not the best exercise. Like even just doing like dumbbell lateral raises versus cable lateral
Yeah.
raises, like
Yeah.
the optimal, what's considered optimal in the science world would
Science.
be
Yeah.
the science world would be to do it with cables at like waist height, making sure that the cables are set at waist height so
Mhm.
that
You got to lean a little bit too.
your delt fibers are completely in alignment with the line of movement, so you can
Mhm.
get the best stretch at the bottom, so on and so forth. So you can make an argument and say that no, dumbbell lateral raises, they're not a good exercise
Mhm.
compared to cable lateral raises. But it's like, where do you draw the line with that? I love dumbbell lateral raises. I
Yeah.
absolutely love them. So
I guess I should have
anyways,
said bad exercise is anything like not free weights, because I love free weights. And I'm just kidding. But um, okay, so my next one, it kind of skips
yeah,
down a few. So you
okay,
might have some behind it,
okay.
but the more you sweat, the better the workout.
Oh, this is
So
good. This is
yeah,
good.
so he says it's a myth. That's not true. You can have a great workout without sweating. Now, objectively, that's probably true, but it kind of goes back to what we were talking about. What are you training for? But I love when I have a great sweat. When I finish a workout and I'm not sweating, I immediately think I did not put out, right? I did not give max effort. So I think it's really more tied to effort and energy that and you know how I train, right? Like if I'm not sweating, the world is like freezing over or something. I don't know. But even like today, I didn't even do cardio before I lifted. I got there a little bit late and we did legs and I felt super weak and I did less weight than I've been typically doing. And I was still drenched in sweat after because I just did more volume, less weight. Like if you're training hard, there's no way you shouldn't be sweating, especially if you're hydrated. Maybe that's the big key. If you're not hydrated, you're not sweating. But he talks about, oh, it could be hot. You could just go to a sauna and not work. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I think like if you're training hard, you're pushing yourself at a certain point, sweat could just be a data point on how hard you used to your normal levels of effort. But there are probably times where it is smart to have easier workouts, maybe more of a stretching thing, and you're not going to sweat. But again, that's focused on whatever your goals are for that time. So, what do you
I
think?
kn I
You knew I was
I
going
knew
to say
you
this one.
I knew you were gonna say this one. I knew it. Okay, so I think I'm on board with everything you just said,
Mhm.
and I think that the very first thing you said was, well, it depends on what your goal is for the workout. What does it actually mean when he says a better workout? Like, what does a better workout mean?
Mhm,
So,
mhm,
I mean, that in itself is subjective. It can be based off of personal preference, your opinion,
mhm,
what you're actually working out for. So I'm just going to use myself for example and what I work out for and what my goals are. So I want to build as much muscle as possible. And in some cases, I want to get as strong as possible. And so for me, I don't sweat very
Mhm.
much. And that's because I can take like relatively long rest periods. The sets are super hard, but they're only going to be like up to 2 minutes, maybe if I'm doing like a really long, high rep set.
Mhm.
But overall, because my rest times are often quite large, quite long, I don't sweat very much. My cardiovascular system is like staying dormant for the
Yeah.
most part. But that's okay. And that might actually be great for the purposes of getting strong and building muscle purely.
Mhm.
Not great
Mhm.
for a cardio workout, but good for building
Yeah.
muscle. And the argument being that if I take longer rest times, like if I'm doing really heavy RDLs or barbell back squats or whatever, I take longer rest times, I can actually perform more reps at the heavier
Yeah.
loads or whatever loads I'm lifting at for each subsequent set if I allow myself to recharge my muscles to recharge a little bit more between sets. So byproduct of that is I don't sweat a lot,
Yeah.
but it's great for the muscles. And also my muscles don't care about sweat. They just care
Yeah.
about tension. So that doesn't the amount that you sweat doesn't it's not a driver for muscle growth. So for me,
Yeah.
it's not something that I feel like I leads me to a better workout.
Yeah, and I don't think it also means you're going to burn more fat or not either. So if someone's trying to like build muscle and lose fat, like that's not you know, they're not correlating with that. But I also think like for me it's a data point, right? So if I go to the gym and I do a baseline workout and I sweat X amount, if I go another day and I still do the same exercises but I'm not sweating as much, like I feel like it's just did I not work as hard today? Because some bodies will sweat more than others. Some people don't sweat as much. Um, but for me, it's kind of like with the fasted cardio. For me, it's like a mental thing. Like I love feeling like I put that work in, and when I take that hoodie off and the shirt is already sweated through, you're like, yes. But it's funny that you knew I was going to say that one.
I
So
knew it. Yeah.
okay, what's your next one?
Okay. You can fix bad posture.
You can
So
fix.
he said,
Yeah,
what did he say?
you said yes, you can.
He said true.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with that. And basically for all the reasons that he mentioned, I'll just kind of explain it my own way is and I'll start by saying you can't really fix bad posture from doing what a lot of fitness professionals
Mm.
say you should do to fix bad posture. So a lot of fitness professionals will say that you can fix a slouched back from training your back. It'll
Mm.
open up your shoulders. It'll help pull your scapula back, and then you'll be able to just kind of automatically stand and sit upright, like with that kind of militaristic textbook posture. And from my understanding, that's not true. It's like you can train your back really hard. You can have tons of muscle, but that doesn't mean that you're going to automatically set
Mhm.
yourself straight into that that good posture position. The way to fix bad posture, and this is basically what he explains, is you kind of have to basically practice the
Yeah.
skill
Yep.
actively thinking about standing or sitting with good posture. So you don't actually really need a whole lot of muscle to just like sit like this. So like
Yeah.
you could have you could be an untrained individual and you can have amazing posture just from like trying to have amazing posture. And then the more you practice that, the more it can become automatic. But it probably if it's not already automatic, it means that you probably do have to actively practice it like outside of the
Mhm.
gym.
Mhm.
Couple interesting examples that I've heard in the past of people that do have tons of muscle that have terrible posture. So for example, like you could have like strong men, like
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
lifting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You know, they're like waiting. They're waiting to go and compete. They're sitting in the benches in the side and the back or whatever. They're like sitting like this on the sideline waiting. And they've got, you know,
Yeah.
like the most muscle of
Little ones,
anyone
yeah.
on the face of the earth, and they're just like, you know, they got huge backs. They're sitting like this, waiting for their time to go up and
Yeah.
perform. Another example I've heard is like even like Olympic gymnasts, like they're sitting
Mhm.
in the back waiting for their turn. They're like a lot of them are like this, you know, they're not
Yeah.
like this, you know, ahead of time. A lot of them, and they got way more muscle than the rest of the world. So
Mhm.
you can fix posture,
Yeah.
but
Not
it's
through.
not from
Yeah.
necessarily from like building your muscles. And that's actually something that I think is worth mentioning because a lot of fitness
Mhm.
professionals will try to sell you on training because
Yeah.
by saying if you train like
Interesting.
this, it is going to fix your posture. And that I don't believe that is true.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe that either. It's interesting because I kind of like glossed over that one, but as you're saying it, it kind of puts it in perspective. Like, there's a reason this is on this list because he probably hears it a ton, right? And like you just confirmed, you hear it a ton. Whereas I don't even consider this a, like, why do people even ask this question with like working out? It's not one and the same. Um, I'm wondering if there's like a correlation though for like percentages of people that work out versus that don't, and on a majority, people that work out maybe have better posture, but maybe that is they're more active, they're not sitting as much, which leads to bad posture. They're just more like lifestyle focused, so they correct these things. But the lifting of the weight doesn't fix it. It's they are disciplined to work on themselves in general, so they will work on a bad
Yeah,
posture.
yeah. That
And I,
makes sense. There's like a
yeah,
correlation between the kind of personality
like the
that would
mindset.
spend
Yeah.
time training regularly is probably the same kind of personality that would train themselves to
Yeah.
sit or
And
stand
I
with
mean,
good
I guess like there
that
is
makes
a
sense.
muscular aspect to it. Like if you're trying to fix your posture all the time, that is working something that is not working. Like your muscles are going to be working to fix your posture, but you're not specifically training in the gym to do that. That you just your body can do it. You just have to do it. Yeah. And remember to do it. Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You could make an argument, I suppose, that like if you train and you get really good at it and you've been doing it for a long time, you can develop your body awareness from training,
Yeah.
which might help you at the end of the day with like reminding you to stand with good
Is it bad
posture.
though? As you're talking about this, I feel like I have to sit up and my now I feel my lower back is a little tight right now about
Man,
posture.
you know, as soon as I started talking about it, I like looking at myself and I'm like, I'm always rounded over like this.
Yeah. You're
I'm like,
hunched over.
I lift all the time. I'm not one of these people that has good posture. But you
Oh
know,
man.
it's interesting. I think back to when I was working as a personal trainer, and when I was being trained as a personal trainer, that was actually something that I was trained was like
Oh really?
the
Interesting.
training that I'm going to do is going to help my clients to
Posture.
develop posture, and I believed it. I didn't
Mm,
know until later on that, building your muscles, like, you can still have bad posture, and
yeah.
unless you fix it from actively practicing it, like, outside of the gym, it's not
Yeah.
gonna do a whole lot,
That's
so
interesting.
that's
That's
worth mentioning.
crazy.
I didn't
But
know
it's
that.
also
That
like
was
a marketing thing too, probably as well. You know, it's just you
exact
gotta get clients.
that
Yeah.
that is it. That is
Yeah.
it.
And I also like I don't know, I don't think I have awful posture. I probably don't have the best, but I also hate anything to improve your posture. So like I had a stand-up desk at work. I got rid of it. I always slouch at work, but I think I make up for it by just not doing that all the time. I don't know, you know what I mean? But
The
yeah.
question, though, like, sitting with this kind of posture, like, it's got a bad rep. Is there
Mhm.
actually, like, objective data and research
Mm.
that
Mhm.
shows that if you sit like this by itself causes all sorts of health
Yeah.
problems?
Like
Like,
what's the
as
quote
an
unquote bad?
isolated variable? Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Like, is it actually that bad? Or is it
Or is it
like
because
if
they have
you
a
have
lifestyle and some other things or whatever else it
yeah.
could be? Yeah.
Or, like, the back problems that people might have that do sit like this, it might not be caused by the bad posture. It might be because, like, they don't that might be because they don't lift. It might be
Mhm.
because, like, they just, like they don't have a lot of muscle
Yeah.
supporting. It's not because they have bad posture, it's just because they're genuinely lacking muscle.
Mhm. Mhm.
Different things, but
Yeah.
anyways,
I like it. So this next one, I think you're going to I don't know. I think we will agree with him. Or
okay.
maybe no, we won't. I can't remember what he said, but we're gonna agree together. I think mine is
Okay.
training to failure isn't necessary. So that was one of the ones that I wanted to talk about. I think he says maybe on that, or it is necessary. I can't remember what he said, but I'm saying it is necessary. Um, Training hard is needed, um, but I also think it's. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Depends on your goals, but he makes the point, and I do think it is true that like a lot of beginners don't know what failure is. So it kind of goes back to my sweating thing. Like you have to be able to push yourself. So like you have to know what failure is before you can even understand where your limitations are. So you need to at least do that from time to time or at least once. I do think it depends on your goals, depending what you're working on. Like fitness is a lifestyle. It's like a marathon, not a sprint. So if there are days where like you're maybe not feeling it. There's a mental aspect to it, like how motivated you are. Like there's days where I don't train to failure all the time. Like I'm getting a volume day in or something. But there's other days where I do too much and I go to failure too many times, you know. So I think it's a fine balance because you don't want to burn out physically or mentally where you're not going to stay consistent on the gym the next day. Because the most important thing is the consistency of the days. But I do think training to failure is necessary. For especially, I mean, with me and you, once I started doing progressive overload, going to failure, like I saw immense progress. So it is important to do. I just think you got to be smart because you might have a lot of people read that and they're like, oh yeah, I got to train to failure, and then they hurt something. They don't have the right technique, they haven't built the right baseline, whatever it is. But then I think for me, I'm tying it more to a mindset. So even if you're maybe not training to failure, you have the mindset of working hard and you're pushing yourself to a limit. And maybe you pushed a little bit harder than the week before, but maybe it's not failure, but at least it's progress. So that's kind of where I sit with that one. I can't remember what he said though. Do you remember what he said on that?
I have written next to my notes false. I think he said false, but I could
Okay, yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, so I think he's saying it is you
Okay.
have to train to failure. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I think that in practice, I think that you probably need to try to train to failure at least some of the time. In a
Mhm.
vacuum, again, according to the research, if you train like 1 to 3 reps from failure most of the time, you'll probably build muscle just fine. But that's in a vacuum. Like in a perfect situation where you can have someone that objectively knows they're always training 1 to 3 reps from failure, and being able to judge that is actually really difficult. So if you tell uh, an untrained person or a novice lifter, like, okay, for this training block, for the first 6 months of training, you're going to train 3 reps from failure. What that might actually look like is them trying to figure out what that is. That might actually be like 10 reps from failure. Seriously,
Yeah.
like seriously. So like in practice, I don't think that works very well. And I think the best way to even have an understanding of what 1 to 3 reps from failure is, because the science shows that that's what optimally leads to muscle growth. I'm totally on board with that. But the only way you can know what that is, what 1 to 3 reps from
Fail.
failure is if you fail. And if you do it a lot, it's a skill.
Yeah.
Like training to failure is a skill. Understanding what your limitations are, the only way you can do that is if you train to failure. And honestly, even for me now, like it's something that I second guess myself on sometimes. So like I did leg press today, and it's one of those exercises where I get to the end of the set, I stop the set. I'll do like as many continuous reps as I possibly can to the point where like I can't withstand the feeling of discomfort anymore. But then I like take a breath or 2 breaths, and then I do another couple, and then another breath, and then I do another. And I've experimented with this before, and I've done something like I can do sometimes like 10 more after the point of like I do like a
Think you're
set of
done.
15, and
Yeah.
then but then then you have to try to track like how many breaths you take between each rep. But the point is, like, even for me, sometimes I have a hard time understanding, like, what's my real failure point? Is it just when it gets really uncomfortable, or is it when like
Yeah.
I can't move anymore to the point where like my muscle fibers literally feel like they're going to explode to like the point of
Yeah.
injury? And then when is it? When it's sometimes it's tough to know, like, when do you go too far?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's still like, even for me, something that I'm learning still, but the only way to really learn it is if you do test
Yeah.
yourself.
So that's a great point. I didn't think when I was thinking about it, I was thinking mostly of heavier weight. Um, and I feel like that's a little bit easier because as you started talking about how many breaths you have, how you're feeling, was your rest 2 minutes or 3 minutes in between the sets? And so is the next set. Like if you don't have that data from before, or maybe you were about to go a set and then someone said, "Hey, excuse me, can you like now? Oh no, I have 30 extra seconds. Is that why I performed better?" Like, so for me, I feel like it's more for like my super heavy sets. And then I think there's a practicality and a safety issue on certain things that maybe it's not smart to do failure all the time, like squats. Like if I fail on squats consistently, that's gonna take me, if I'm by myself, I gotta unrack it. I can't pick that weight up and then I gotta pick the bar back. Like I'm not optimizing my time for the workout. So overall, I'm getting not as good of a workout um collectively. But I do think when you're talking about like doing 25 reps or whatever that is, like I've realized this with some of like the Marine Corps PTs and more of like a CrossFit stuff, especially body weight things. Like failure is way farther than you think. Like, whereas I think failure for like a 1 rep max is a little bit more objective. Like you just can't move the weight. You're trying, unless there's like a life or death situation. But like you can do one more body weight squat. Like do it. Like, and so at that point, what's failing is your mental toughness for lighter weights and more reps. So I just was thinking about that. It was a good point you kind of made me think about.
And that's where a lot of my own second guessing comes in. That's exactly
Mhm.
it. Is it's like, am I stopping the set because of like an emotional response?
Yeah.
Like the burning is so the burning is so intense, and like, I'm having this emotional
Yeah.
response that I need to stop. But physically, I might be able to get more reps out. Like
Yeah.
technically from a mechanical standpoint, like there's still
Mhm.
gas in the tank. It's like my emotions that are causing me to stop. Like I gotta
Yeah.
make the pain stop. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Interesting.
exactly it.
That's good.
Um, I think it's now that we're talking, I'm also realizing too that people can mean different things when they say training to failure. So that, for example, is like
Mhm.
training to failure because like of the feeling of burning. That's my failure point versus uh, failure point being like when I can literally no longer move, or the
Mhm.
failure point being where you go down to do a rep when you're doing the bench press, for example, and then you literally like that's real
Physically can't do
failure,
it.
where you bring the
Yeah.
weight down, you can't bring it back up, you need a spotter or you're kind of stuck there. Like that I think is real failure, is when you go
Mhm.
down, you can't come back up. But I think when people say like, yeah, bro, I just went to failure, usually it's like it's actually like maybe 1 rep from failure where they actually do complete the last rep. That's not technically failure because
Yeah.
they finished the last rep. But anyways, it's kind of a
Yeah.
digression.
Yeah. 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 No, good points. What's your next one?
Okay. Supplements aren't necessary if you have a good diet.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I don't know what we're how because I know are we both like taking supplements or
Mhm.
consuming
Shout
supplements.
out Legion.
Exactly. So I'm interested to hear what what your thoughts are on this. But my
Yes.
thoughts are that you don't need supplements
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
have pretty much the best transformation that you possibly can. Like, I
Yeah.
think you can
Yeah.
pretty much do it without any supplements,
Yep.
as long as you're ultra meticulous about your diet. So what that
Mhm.
would mean is you'd have to have an understanding of what the content of what micronutrients you would benefit from to perform your
Mhm.
best and to build the most muscle and to maybe help you feel good so you can accomplish fat loss. So you'd have to have an understanding of all those different micronutrients, and then you'd have to have an understanding of where to find them in different foods. Then you have
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
make sure that you include them in like a meal plan regularly. If you do that, then you don't need like a multivitamin or anything like that, or you don't need to take like magnesium
Mhm.
or vitamin K supplements or whatever. You wouldn't need to do that because you're getting all of it from whole foods, and it's possible. It's definitely
Yeah.
possible, but
Yeah.
it takes a lot of thinking. And you could say the same thing about protein.
Mhm.
So he obviously sells supplements, so he was kind
Yeah.
of like trying to be middle
Yeah.
of the road,
But
and
he
at the
did
same
say, "Don't
time,
buy
he's
my
like,
stuff then." Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But like, I mean, protein powder, for example, you don't need protein powder. Like
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
can get more than enough from Whole Foods. Again, this is I'll say like that's in a vacuum. A lot of
Yeah.
people from a preference standpoint struggle to get it down from Whole Foods. I'll use myself as an example. I have no problem getting all of the protein I need from Whole Foods,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it is so it is definitely possible. You don't need supplements. I think that creatine is one that you can argue about.
Mhm.
So you can get creatine from Whole Foods, like red meat, unprocessed
Be
red
tough
meat.
though. You'd have to eat a lot of it, right?
Yeah, and you could make an argument too. There are people that don't respond. They're creatine non-responders,
Mhm.
so they have creatine and doesn't do anything. And I believe that's because their body's already producing or storing or secreting the optimal amount of usable creatine anyway. So like there's some
Yeah.
people that don't even respond to it. But anyways, you could make an argument for sure that creatine could help you improve your physique by 1 to 2%. But that's the thing is creatine's not like it's not going to be like a full transformation where like the next week after you start taking it, you're going to be like, holy crap, like, dude,
All of a
I just
sudden,
like,
yeah.
I look like the Hulk now. It's like, no, like maybe you'll notice a little bit of a
Yeah,
difference, a
yeah,
little bit
yeah,
of an
yeah.
improvement, maybe. So it's not going to be like as big as what I think a lot of people might initially think it's going to be, or it's not
Yeah.
going to have the effect.
The
um,
overall improvement's only gonna be very
1%.
minuscule. Like all that other majority stuff, it's way more what you can do with your training, your diet, your sleep, all these other things are gonna be way more important. Um, I agree. I don't think it's necessary. I just wrote like, um, it can just help or maybe optimize. I also think there's like a placebo effect to it. Even if there is maybe an actual effect, like you taking your creatine, you taking your pre-workout, like you're like if it makes you feel better and you get a mental boost about it too, like there's nothing wrong with that. If it's like a even if it doesn't do anything, what's the Space Jam, the original, when he has like the special water from like Michael Jordan or whatever, and all it's really just water. They just perform better. Um, that's what I kind of think sometimes. But so I don't take a ton of stuff. I'm like just I do the big three, like pre-workout, creatine, and protein. I do think the protein is really it's really helped me because I'm not as disciplined as you and most people I think would have a hard time getting the appropriate amount of protein without going over their calories if they're not eating super clean and super knowledgeable of it. Oh, you could eat something with a ton of protein, but it has a ton of other stuff in it too. Next thing you know, you're eating way more calories than you should. um I also like I do I don't know if it really counts as supplements or whatever, but like, I take a lot of like especially with the marathon stuff, I take a lot of like electrolyte, powders. I take like gels and stuff like that to help perform, help me perform. But I also it's weird, I can't swallow pills. So there's a lot of like I don't take any of the other like joint stuff. I don't take anything that is a pill that I so and I don't know if I maybe would, but because I can't swallow pills, I just don't. So I don't think that has held me back not from taking other things. I also don't. I think the level like we were talking about for me to talk about like the micronutrients and all that other stuff, I have to be so much more better than I am for me to even notice. You know what I mean? So I think you can still get to 99% without it, which
Yeah.
99% is pretty good. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm on board with all that. I think it's also worth mentioning too, like you're bringing up like the protein powder and stuff, and how it can make it easier to get in enough protein. I'm totally on board with that too.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
depending on your personal preference, your personality, and I'll let you know that I myself have 2 scoops of protein every day on top of
Yeah.
all the protein that I get from Whole Foods because of personal preference, because
Mhm.
and this is why I like using it. It's not necessarily to get in even more protein. It's because I can make these delicious concoctions that are
Yes.
super sweet, that are an alternative to eating something that's, like, super high calorie dense and
Mhm,
not
mhm,
helpful for
mhm.
my goals. It's
Yeah.
much more affordable for my calorie budget, basically,
Yeah.
from
I also
including the delicious
yeah.
protein powders. So I make these little, like, protein concoction
Yes.
bowls and puddings. So, like, I think that's my personal preference. That's how I
Yeah,
like to
it's
eat
like a little
protein
dessert,
powders.
and for me, it helps fill me up,
Exactly.
so, like, when I get that temptation, it's very filling, it's easy to make, I don't have to, like, fire up the grill or anything, and so when I get those like, midnight wanting to snack, I don't because I had a protein shake that is like, oh, I'm full at the end of the day, so I have mine at the end of the day. Cookies and cream, Legion is my favorite, flavor, so use code Kaplan.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, so was that yours or mine? That was yours, right?
That was
Yeah.
mine. Yep, your turn.
Okay. Okay. Um, so I don't think objectively I'm correct on this one, but I disagree with him, and I don't know if my reasoning makes sense. It probably doesn't. So this might be a dumb take. Okay.
I wanted to quickly interrupt Zach in my conversation to let you know a little bit about the work that I do as an online physique coach. I work one-on-one with each of my clients to help them accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition. I've been doing this work since 2018 and love helping my clients to transform their bodies and ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, you're invited to hit the link in the description below where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and the kind of help that I can offer you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. All right. Let's get back to the episode.
Recovering is the most important part of building muscle. He says yes. I said no. And I think it's just more of a nuanced argument of it. Recovery is super important, but I would argue it's like not the most important part of building the muscle because recovery is the thing you do after you have stressed the muscle. So the most important part about building muscle is stressing the muscle. Like recovery from not doing anything all day doesn't help you build muscle. So you have to do the thing to then do the recovery. So that's kind of how I objectively tried to justify that Jeff was wrong and I am right. And I'm smarter than him. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Does that make sense, or am I completely out of left field?
I also picked and bolded that one, and I
Let's
wrote,
go.
"This is." Yeah, I thought it was. I honestly, I just think it's a dumb argument in general. So like,
Yeah.
I'm completely on the same page as you.
So we're either both
Where
smart or both dumb. I don't know.
it's like recovery is super important for building muscle, yes. But if you don't have training, some kind of stimulus for the muscle, then it doesn't
Yes.
matter how much you're recovering. I mean, that's most people's
Yes.
that is most people's problem is they
They
recover
sleep
too
12 hours a
much.
day and they don't work out. Yeah.
That's most people's problem. So I just like I, I don't think it's a good argument, period. Like
Yeah.
you just flat out need it you flat out need the training. So like
Yeah.
I'd say they're both 50-50 important.
Yeah. 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 Maybe if they would have like talked about like how muscle grows and like after you stress it, like what's the most important thing? Is it your protein after you take it? Like maybe, but like it's just too vague. Like recovery is the most important part of building muscle. No, it's not. Stressing the muscle, putting tension on it, So we agreed and we both bolded that one. Look at that. Jeff is wrong.
Yep,
And Sam and I are
we're
right.
right.
Yep.
We're right.
Okay,
Okay.
what's your
You
next one?
ready?
That was
The
easy
next
one. Yeah,
Yeah, that one was a piece of cake.
yeah.
Um Getting enough arm training from compound exercises. Or I guess I'll frame it as to build your arms, you get enough from just doing
Compound
compound
movements.
exercises. Maybe that's
Ooh,
maybe
I
that's the
like
best way
this.
to frame it.
Before you start, can I say that my next one was going to be the one right before that? You get enough core training from compound lifts. So maybe we can just
Right.
lump those in together talk about compound lifts.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Okay. Okay. Well, starting with the arm training, I suppose. I think that. So what did he say? He
I think he said you need to
said
do
pulse.
arm training.
So true.
Yeah, because like he's like talking about like especially triceps. There's no compound
Yeah.
movement works this.
To hit the long head of your triceps.
Yeah.
That was his argument. You can't do anything above your head, which So I'm mostly on board with what he said in that
Mhm.
if you want to take your arms to their potential, then you probably need to do some arm isolation work. That
Yeah.
being so, I think depending on again, like there's so much of this boils down to context and it
Mhm.
depends on like what each individual's goals are. I do think if you take like a novice trainee, someone that hasn't really done a lot of strength training is going to be new to them. You probably don't need to get a new person doing like a ton of arm isolation work if they're doing
Mhm.
lots of compound work because they're going to be getting enough training volume for their arms from the compound lift. So it
Yeah.
depends on the training level of the person. So like a
Yes.
very new lifter in the beginning, they're probably going to see some initial gains to their arms without doing the isolation stuff of the overhead tricep extensions or anything like that, or like the behind the arm bicep curls, like on an incline bench or whatever with cables. But as they become more advanced after they've built an initial foundation of muscle, I'm kind of on the same page as him where I think that if you want to take your arms to what their potential might be,
Yep.
then it probably would be worth doing some isolation work. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that one?
100%. I definitely agree with that. How you said it, I agreed with him with the arms specifically. It kind of goes back to one of the earlier ones we didn't talk about, where you can build an amazing body with just 6 exercises. I think that's just, I think it's kind of true. Like you don't need to
Ooh,
do
that's a good one.
ISO.
We can talk about that one
Yeah.
too. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. Well, you didn't bold it, Sam. I'm just kidding. No,
I know, I missed the chance.
but like, I think you can be overall fit, have a great body, and never do isolation exercises. You could do just body weight exercises. You could just do like there's so many things that you can just still do. I think as you mentioned, as you become a little bit more hyper focused on a certain goal, what you're trying to do, specifically for us with bodybuilding, if you want to be competitive, like you're gonna have to do isolation exercises, certain things. So I definitely think for a general person who's especially like if they're working like with you, like with just a weight loss or fat loss or just body transformation, you don't necessarily have to do arm curls or tricep. Like you can just do bench pressing. That's going to work your triceps as well. And you'll be
You
fine.
know, what I'm just thinking right now
Hmm. What's
is
up?
I'm just thinking of like bringing up Olympic gymnasts again.
Hmm.
I mean,
They look awesome.
I don't know what their training routine is. Maybe they do bicep curls and tricep pushdowns and stuff, but they've got some pretty meaty arms.
What you're saying is we need to bring Olympic gymnasts on the show. So if anyone's listening, let's let us know. See,
That's
that's how we do that. No,
that's how we do
that's great. I think of like just when you look at like the CrossFit athletes. Again, I don't know. I know they're just doing a lot of Olympic style lifting, but like their bodies look awesome. They're jacked. I mean,
yeah.
they're probably juicing, but so but yeah, so I agree with you. The next one I had with the is and I wanted to see what you're pointing on, but this is you get enough core training from compound lift. So me and you have talked about this. You talked about you don't really do ab exercises. You're thinking about maybe adding those in again. But what is your thoughts on that? Because he mentions I can't remember if he put a question mark or if
Twisting.
he what was it? Yeah, he mentions the
He brings
rotation, so
up
you have to do some of it
rotation
because you don't get that in
for your
compound movement.
obliques.
Yeah, correct. So, I don't know the science behind it all, but I basically said I think you need to do exercise by itself, just like you do any other isolation exercise. I even mentioned he talks about rotation. For me specifically, I work my core every day, and I almost superset it in between when I'm bored because I have to sweat. I'll do like some leg lifts or incline sit ups or whatever. I do think there's like you can build the muscle if you specifically train it, so it helps them pop more. So maybe you don't have to lose as much body fat for them to show. But I think there's some importance to working them generally. And I think this is more of like an endurance thing, like holding a plank, for example. I don't think you're going to build that endurance from doing compound movements. like I guarantee I can out hold a plank because I train holding planks. Like, it's like a skill like anything else. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that because I know you don't really specifically do them, but you know a lot more about that stuff. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that training your core, and he makes a point of saying that, well, your core isn't just purely your abs. So there
Hmm.
are your abs, but there's also your obliques, your
Hmm.
spinal erectors technically count as your core too, all supporting that part of your spine. But to train any of those muscles, to build them, I should say, to grow them, you'd grow them the same way that you'd grow any other muscle. Your
Hmm.
biceps,
Hmm.
find some way to expose them to mechanical tension. You do it for a long time, implement some kind of progressive overload, and they'll grow. So you can apply that principle to the muscles of your
Hmm.
core, and you'll so for your abs, for example, if you train them in isolation, like what you
Yeah.
do, and you implement progressive overload, then you can make them bigger. You can make them grow. So if you're trying to build big abs that do pop, they probably will pop out more, which is probably desirable for a lot of people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then an argument could be made that if you want those muscles to reach their potential, that it might be worth doing that. Um,
Hmm.
with your obliques could be the same thing.
Yeah.
And same thing with your spinal erectors. I think that your spinal erectors probably get, if you're deadlifting regularly, barbell squatting regularly, I think that muscle
Hmm.
probably gets very close to what it can w it probably has the capacity to grow grow to its
Yeah.
potential just from doing those exercises. I think that muscle
Hmm.
probably does. If you're doing it regularly, you can make an argument and say, "Well, it's not actually moving, it's holding a static position, which isn't optimal for muscle growth, but just the sheer volume, if you're doing that regularly, like over the course of years of lifting, that might
Hmm.
be enough to grow it pretty close to what its potential might be. For your abs, not I'm not so sure you can grow them close to what their potential might be from the
Mm.
training, but you can at the very least grow them a decent amount to get them to pop for a lot of people
Yeah.
decently well, probably. Same thing with your obliques. Um, but I think you can make an argument that if you want to train them to get as big as possible, just like training your arms, I think
Yeah.
that there's probably a place to include some isolation work.
So with that, are you going to add them back in your program or no? Not yet.
Probably not.
Nice. So we can touch on it real quick. We go back to the earlier one about, can you get an amazing body with 6 exercises? What do you think?
I think yes.
Mhm.
However, I can point out reasons why it wouldn't be optimal, why I
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
do that.
Well,
So
it's like, what's an amazing body? That's subjective, right? So,
there's right out of the gate. Yeah, it's like what
yeah,
exactly is an amazing body?
yeah.
Um,
But when I looked at those list of things, I would say those are all. And for everyone listening, when you go back, it's like he said: rows, squats, deadlifts, bench, curls, dips slash overhead press because they didn't really know. Um, I when I look at those, I think those are all essential. Like, those are in my program. So it's like those are great. So I would say you can get amazing body with those, but that's like the baseline. Like, you need those, and then on top, that's how you get the amazing, optimal, exquisite body on top of that. Like, you'll be a fit person, just like we're talking about with just going to failure or not. Like, you can get a great body with just doing compound movement, but like, if we want to take it to the next level, there's other things that you can do. Kind of how I look at it. But he didn't mention incline walking, sprints. I don't see that exercise on there. And marathon
7,
training. I didn't see that in there.
7 and 8.
So yeah.
Um, I think that you can build an absolutely incredible, top-notch, top 0.1% physique from just doing those exercises. But here's the reasons why I wouldn't want to do it myself and why I think it wouldn't work for a lot of people. So The first reason is from training hard with the purpose of
Mm.
developing your physique is even if you're doing everything perfectly, it's really hard to never experience after if you're doing this for a year, maybe it doesn't happen in
Yeah.
1 year, maybe in 2 years, it doesn't happen, maybe not in 3 years, but if you're really trying to take your physique to this place where it's like, it's top notch,
Mhm, mhm,
eventually you're gonna run into a nagging pain, a little bit of a something, something that doesn't feel
mhm.
so good. And one of the benefits of having a wide variety of different exercises to choose from is if when you squat, one of these core 6 exercise that was one of the core 6 exercises,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
If you squat and you feel hip pain or knee pain or ankle pain,
What else you
it's
gonna
no
do?
big
Yeah.
deal because then you can do leg press or a hack
Correct.
squat or a
Yep.
split squat or something else that doesn't hurt. But if you're stuck with just those 6 exercises,
Mhm.
then what are your options gonna be? It's just gonna be to take time off, which is I mean, that's okay, or maybe you just
Just recover
dramatically
more and you'll build muscle.
recover harder. That's it. Um So there could be an argument like you could train lighter, do higher reps, but I've even run into instances for myself where I develop nagging pains, and even when it's the specific movement, like I need to change the movement. I can
Mhm,
still train the
mhm.
same muscle, but I need to like tuck in my elbows, or I need to change
Yeah.
something more than just the reps or the load or the tempo. And if I'm
Yep.
stuck with these 6 exercises, I just wouldn't like that. So
Yeah.
personal preference, I wouldn't like that.
I think it gives
I think
flexibility. Yeah.
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 But I
And
do
mentally I
think
would get exhausted for it.
yeah, and
Sorry.
I think he
Yeah.
brings that point, right? Like,
Yep.
his, like, personal preference, like, having some variety would be ideal for many people so that
Mhm.
you never get in a place where you're bored. I think it in a vacuum, I think it's possible. I definitely think
Yeah.
it's possible. But and there probably are people that do that, you got a garage gym, you've got a
Yeah.
minimal amount of equipment, that's what you got, and yeah, you build an amazing physique that way and you're cool with it, then my goodness, like, I wouldn't change a thing if you're cool with it.
Yeah.
But, my own personal preference would be I'm just grateful that I do have options if I do need to change, like, from my own regular routine of more than 6 exercises, but
Yeah.
that's my
100%.
2 cents.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree. Okay. Well, wait, did you go? I don't remember. We combined so many. I'm gonna go next. I'm just taking it. Okay.
Do it.
Um, so we kind of already hit on this, but I agree with this one. Sleep is the most important part of recovery. So I wrote yes. So I think this is different than recovery is the biggest support ability muscle. So we already debunked that falseness. But when it comes to recovery, I do agree and think sleep is the most important part. I say that because everyone tells me that. I don't practice that myself. As we all know, I only average like 5 hours of sleep during the week. Is why I'm missing out on gains. But yeah, I think you're all the science behind it. That's when your muscles grow. I think mentally, that's when you recharge. You can attack your workouts better the next day and all that other stuff. So you're mentally refreshed, and I think that goes into part of recovery. Um, so yeah, I definitely agree, and I think he was right on the point with that.
I also agree. I agree with you. I agree with what he said, but I do still think that this one is worth discussing.
Mhm, mhm.
Couple points. I think there's and I've fallen into this where we can almost develop a kind of anxiety if we have like bad sleep or a bunch of bad sleeps because then it starts to eat away at us like oh
Yeah,
I'm having bad sleep so now I'm not building muscle and like I've fallen into that before and it
yeah.
sucks having bad sleep so according to or having good sleep according to the science is super important for muscle growth but here's the interesting thing is there are a lot of people that don't get amazing sleep that are super super jacked and it's just interesting I think this is
Stop talking about me,
again this
Sam.
is
Stop talking about me.
well I am talking about you so okay you are an example so like 5 6 hours sleep on average I mean it's not the ideal you probably would prefer having 8 hours of sleep right like if you
Mhm.
had the option between sleeping 5 hours or 8 hours like which would you choose
Yeah, we take 8 all day.
yeah but even so like you got some good you get uh, a relatively it's more than an infrequent number of 5 hours nights of sleep, right?
Yeah.
But you are super jacked. You're far, far, far above the standard deviation. So that says something that's interesting, right? And you built it's not just like you got jacked when, 10, 20 years ago, and you've just held your muscle since then, just with having all this poor sleep. You slept better when you were younger. That's when you built all.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you actually built this the big amount of muscle that you have. You built that with all the bad nights of sleep in the mix. So I think
Yeah.
that's at least worth considering. And I also know people that are super jacked, more jacked than I am, and they get significantly less sleep on
Yeah.
average than me. Same thing, like 5 to 6 hours a night, sometimes less. So I the science says that getting enough sleep, lots of sleep, is super important for muscle growth, and I think that is entirely true. But I do think that it's at least worth noting that you still can build muscle even if it's not
Yeah.
a perfect situation, and that might be helpful for people that, like you, like it's just circumstances. You're just doing a lot all the time, and it just doesn't work out the way that you'd like. You get less sleep than you want. So that might be nice for other people that are in that context to hear, or like people that have like kids or like
Mm-hmm.
newborn babies and that sort of thing that are really worried about like their progress. It's like it's not the end of the world. Like you're gonna be
Yeah.
okay. And that's something I know people that compete in natural bodybuilding that do their preps and still win, not just
Yeah.
look good, but still win. And they've got newborns. Like they're up, you know,
Yeah.
they're up. They have broken sleep through entire preps and they still do well. That says a lot. I know other people that like commute. They have to get up insanely early every day and they have late nights. They just don't get great
Yeah.
sleep and they're super, super jacked. So I think it's at least worth noting that you can have some peace of mind in knowing if your sleep isn't ideal, there are still people out there like you that get super jacked without the ideal sleep
Yeah.
situation. So that actually helps me. I actually have to
Yeah.
remind myself that on the nights where I have bad sleep because I'm the kind of person that I start to feel a bit anxious if I have a bad sleep. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not building muscles. Like, hold your horses. Like all these guys, Zach got super jacked and he's getting 5 hours sleep.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't.
Suck it up, Sam. You can do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then last point with this is kind of like a point outside of like fitness and bodybuilding, but applies to fitness and bodybuilding is like and I want to say like I am pro sleep. I think that you should if you can, then my goodness, go for 8+ hours sleep.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I do that for myself. I try to prioritize that. But I think it is worth saying that a lot of the people that do accomplish some really great things, bodybuilding aside,
Mm-hmm.
anything,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
oftentimes they don't get ideal sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's
So
kind of similar,
anyways,
like as you were saying that, kind of like we were talking about with the posture or whatever, like is it the mindset, right? So I think for me at least, I think the best thing about it, kind of you're leading into that other aspects of life that people are successful, business owners, things like that. Because there's a certain drive, dedication, focus, like no matter what, I'm getting up at the same time. And whatever work was happening the day before that needed our attention, like we're gonna do that as well. So it's like I'm not gonna let sleep get in the way of progress, right? And I think it's just like it's another mental challenge to overcome. And we just see that as a barrier and a cool, I'll do it even on less sleep, bring it on. I don't need optimal conditions. That's kind of how I feel. One thing I think also, I don't know the full science behind this. I don't know if you wear a track. Do you wear like an app that tells you if you sleep well or not? So I got this hashtag Fitbit. I'm Fitbit fan. I'm on Fitbit team. And I really got it because I lost all my weight, my first transformation without tracking calories, without using the watch or anything. But when I started running the marathon, I needed something for my pacing and things like that. But it also gives me my sleep score every day, tells me how much I sleep. And I don't know how accurate it is, but I use it as like a guide because at least if it's different from day to day, I can use that as a trend. Um, it is pretty good at tracking like REM, deep, and everything else. But I think the one thing people focus on the hours of sleep instead of the quality of sleep. So like my wife goes to bed, she gets more sleep than me, but I think I sleep better than her because she tosses and turns. She wakes up a lot. She has to get up and go to the bathroom. Whereas like I'm out. I get my 5 hours are 5 hours. And then I'll like look at my sleep score and I'll be like, the other day I got 4 hours of sleep. So I don't want to bring that up. I got 4 hours and my sleep score was like 75. And I'm like, oh, That's okay. That's pretty good. You know what I mean? So I think also, not to get too data driven, but I think the quality of the sleep also, not just the quantity of it, is important. We just got a new bed. It's nice. It's like memory foam thing, and it's a bigger bed, so we don't, when we move around, we don't wake each other up. And so I'm trying to optimize my sleep for this season in the marathon and the bodybuilding show. But we'll see if it makes a difference. So
I think I don't know. I don't know for sure about this, but I'll just throw it out there that I think that there's probably genetics. Genetics is a variable
mhm.
that is probably important to think about as far as like sleep duration and sleep quality goes. So it could be the case, for example, that some people genetically
Mhm.
seem to perform and to do a little bit better with
Yeah.
7 hours instead of 8 or 6 instead of 7. So
Mhm, mhm.
there could be a genetic component to that.
And I
I'm
think he
not
said
sure
in
though.
there, it's like a window between 6 and 8 is what typically people can get. I think is the window he kind of said in
Yeah.
there. Cool. What's the next one you got?
I've got deadlifting is bad for your back. You got that one
I had
too?
that one as well. Yes.
Okay. Um No, I don't think it's bad for your back, and, he also I'm on board with what he said. So,
Mhm.
if you deadlift properly and you get really good at it, you implement progressive overload for many months and years, I think it's
Mhm.
one of the
Mhm.
best things that you can possibly do for your back is you
Yeah.
build up that musculature, you build up the other musculature too. So, like, my preferred deadlift variation is Romanian deadlifts. The primary mover is my hamstrings and glutes, which if you have strong posterior chain lower body, it's probably gonna help you
Yeah.
throughout the day to just move around in general. If there's a lot of strength and a muscle in that area, then that might be helpful overall for the longevity of your back. And then also on top of that too, he brings this up, I think,
Mhm.
that you do build those specific muscles, like even when you're doing a Romanian deadlift, the hamstrings, glutes, primary movers. But
Yeah.
even so, your spinal erect, he does say this, your spinal erectors, your traps, your lats a little bit, they're all getting stimulus. They're all getting stronger from doing that movement as well. And that's
Yeah.
ideal for like the longevity of your back. Where the misconception is if you do deadlifts poorly
Yes.
regularly, that's when
Yeah.
there can be some problems. So if if you are unintentionally
Mhm.
rounding from the lumbar spine, your lower back, with loads that are just too heavy for you to support, then that's where there can be all sorts of problems that come up where you throw out your back when you're lifting.
Yeah.
You could make a point though. There's something there is a deadlift variation where you do actually intentionally round and extend your spine to work
Mhm.
the spinal erectors, but the key is when you're doing that, you have to be really intentional with how you move and
Yeah.
not to lift too heavy to the point where it starts to compromise your spine, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you could even say rounding your spine in some instances is okay as long as you do it with a lot of
Comfortable with it. Yeah.
intentionality and control and you're not lifting too heavy. But the problem is when you do it sloppy with poor technique, when
Mhm.
you're lifting
Mhm.
too heavy and then things go out. That's where it gets a bad rep. And I'm
Yeah.
on board with that. Like if
Yeah.
you're training like that, then that's probably pretty bad for your back.
Yeah.
What are
I
your thoughts?
agreed. I agreed with the video, and I agree with you. Um, I said no. You just need to train smart with good technique. So deadlifting is bad for Zach's back. That's what they forgot to say, because I do not have good technique and I do not know how to figure it out yet. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I've been really trying to work on, right, to improve. And it's like you have to check your ego at the door when you're working on your technique. But I do think it's a great exercise in general. I think they were very emphatic about it. They were like, bad deadlifting is bad for you. And it's kind of similar with like exercise. Are there bad exercises? Deadlifting is not a bad exercise. It's a great exercise, but a bad deadlift is a bad exercise, because you're doing it wrong. So I think it's more about the technique. It's about the ego of it. It's all the different hacks that people try to do to overlift. Like, what grip are you using? Are you doing sumo? Like, they're all doing whatever they can do to put up weight. So, the deadlifting is not the problem. It's people's egos or the problem with it. 'Cause I think it's a great exercise. I mean, it's one of the most practical exercises. If you think about picking up a couch, picking up a washer or dryer when you're moving, like lifting, properly, like super important. So I'm just bad at it. I can't figure it out, man.
Well, question for you. Have you ever experienced any kind of like acute injury from deadlifting or a nagging pain from
I
deadlifting? Have you ever felt that yourself?
I don't have I wouldn't qualify anything as an injury. After doing some like leg days with like squats and deadlifting or whatever, like my lower back, I can feel it. I wouldn't say it's hurt. It's like I worked it. And so in my mind, I think, okay, I'm meeting threshold of something. Either those muscles aren't ready for this load yet, or my technique was starting to suffer at that weight. So then I usually stop. I've seen so many bad stories with deadlifting and people getting hurt. I've never wanted to risk it. So I'm like hyper cautious on it. So the minute I can't do a weight, I'm not like, we're talking about training and failure. I ain't training and failure on deadlift. I'm pretty sure I could get the weight up, but it's not worth the risk of reward for me. It's not worth it. So I haven't like been injured doing it. It's just like, I'm like, oh man, my back's a little tight today. It's probably from yesterday, but it's never like by the next leg day, it's gone. If that makes sense. So I don't know if that's because I'm doing it wrong or if it's just I'm doing it okay and it's supposed to feel. I don't know.
Well,
But
I've injured my back doing it before.
mhm.
Nothing super serious, but the kind of injury where it like hurts pretty bad for like 2 or 3 days and then it heals quite quickly.
Yeah,
And usually I found that it happens when I'm feeling already like kind of beat up
yeah,
and it's already it usually like I'm already kind of having an off day and I'm trying to push my limits and it
yeah,
happens near the end of the set. And the reason I think it happens is, and I'm just thinking the last couple times because I film myself so often when I do it. I usually look back afterwards to be like, what happened? Like, why did
yeah.
this happen? And usually it is. It's just like my technique just gets a little bit
Well,
sloppy at
yeah,
the end of the set. And I'm pushing my limits at the same time. So it's usually a load that's really challenging for me. And it's like, yeah, I can kind of see like
that's why.
my
Yeah,
lumbar spine doesn't look as good as it could be. And I'm already feeling kind of beat up and something just kind of goes out.
yeah,
So I think that's where it can be tough. That's where it's tough for me is knowing what my own limitations are. Is like I want it
yeah,
because like you know it's like maybe not the best exercise to go till failure. It's like yeah, it's tough.
yeah,
Sometimes for me that's my issue is like knowing when to
yeah.
not go too
Well,
far.
and for me, I'm ultra competitive, mainly with myself, but also like this is gonna sound really bad and a little bit of digression, but like when I see someone that like is deadlifting a ton or squatting a ton of weight, I'm looking at them and I'm judging them, even though I probably shouldn't. And I'm like, how can they squat that much? Right? Like I'm like shocked. Like I'm like, I am stronger than them, but somehow I'm not stronger than them. Right? Like, and it's like this puzzle that I can't solve. And I justify it to myself by saying this is a cop out. Like strength training is a skill. They have better technique. They're not actually stronger than me. They're just using the muscles in a more optimal way. But like if we had to get out like on a random thing and not use technique or do this specific exercise, I think I'm stronger. If we had to grapple or if we had to like go on a run because of like if we had to do anything else, like I'm stronger than them. But it's just so frustrating. So I'm like, I was literally at the gym the other day and there's a female there and she was deadlifting like 345. And I was like, I can barely do that. And like and she was tiny, like probably a buck 30. And I'm just like, and then I saw her bench pressing like 185, and I'm like, okay, she must compete, like you know what I mean, in like strongman. Like, so I was just like, my ego, I need my ego, but I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like it is a skill though, but I just haven't mastered it. But it's weird because my bench press is the opposite. I do that really well, so it's like a give and take, I guess.
Yeah. I used
Yeah,
to have a gym friend at the it was years ago now at one of the old gyms that I used to train at, and she was regularly deadlifting over 3 plates. She was one of the
yeah,
strongest people at gym, stronger than probably 95 to 97% of men that I know now. She's in great shape, tons of muscle, but,
yeah.
yeah, a little bit
So
of a digression.
this kind of goes into my last one that I had at least. proper form is everything. So we just kind of alluded to this. And I think so I agreed with him. I said both. So I said some junk technique while working hard is also important. A few cheat reps. He talks about cheat reps. So it's interesting because we just talked about how we shouldn't think our technique when doing certain exercises is not good. So I think generally proper form is the right way to do it. We talked about this last episode with like just science based and all this other stuff. And kind of the next one after that, the full range of motion, stretch, all the good stuff. But I think there are certain exercises that are safer than others, and you can maybe push a little bit to get that a little bit like a little bit of extra oomph into it that you wouldn't be able to get with full correct form and range of motion. If you can only go halfway, but you get a little bit, like you still got something better than what you would have stopped with earlier. And I think for me, this is a theme you've heard me. For me, it's a mental thing as well. Like it's like I'm gonna get this done. I'm attacking this. I'm gonna win no matter what. So, because in the real world, if I'm lifting something up and it's like life or death, I'm just gonna,
it's not gonna be perfect.
Yeah,
you're like, wait a second, let me get in the perfect position.
Yeah. And it's like, I always think of that scene. Sorry, like I think is it Cliffhanger where Sylvester Stallone is like hanging over and he curls, or is it Batman? It's like all those things where they're like curling him up. They're doing not proper technique. Yeah.
Wait a second, let me just like perfectly bicep curl you up.
Yeah. So I think for certain exercises, especially like the isolation ones, you can do a little bit of cheating to get it up. But as I'm saying it, there's some like you should generally be able to do it proper first and then add. When I see someone starting their bench press with some jankety technique, bouncing off the chest, half repping, I'm like, what are we doing? But if I see someone do 8 clean ones and then struggle in last 2 and maybe, whatever, I'm like, oh, I respect that because they're working hard. So that's the way I think. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like it's that old Picasso quote. It's you got to know the rules before you break them. And that's that's going along the lines with what you're saying and also what he says with especially when you're first starting out, it's probably a good idea if you learn how to train with good technique. You're going to build so much muscle that way, and you're going to stay healthy throughout the process without injuring yourself. But then when you become more advanced, you want to like keep pushing your limits. I think the only real way to push your limits is to get to the point of the set where the technique isn't going to look like pristine. It almost has to start looking a little bit gray. There are some examples like you mentioned where you probably want to make sure you're less gray than other exercises. So like the deadlifts, for example, like there's probably not as much room for you to get gray at the end of the set with your technique. You probably want to keep it a little bit cleaner so that it doesn't become too risky. But even so, I think that the only way to really push your limits is maybe like you make it a goal to keep the majority of the set at 100% good technique. But those last several reps, if it doesn't look crystal clear, that might actually be a good indication that you're training with the intention of pushing your limits, and that might be the best way to ensure that you're consistently building more muscle. The tough part with that is knowing what your limitations are, is like just making sure you don't get too gray with the technique, because there is a line that you cross and eventually things just either start becoming inefficient or injurious. Like you just there's just a greater chance that you're going to hurt yourself over getting extra stimulus for muscle growth, and that can sometimes be tough to figure out. Maybe the only way to figure that out though is to kind of make mistakes along the way, and you learn it the hard way. That's how I figured a lot of it out. Was I pretty much injured myself doing every single exercise at some point.
Figure out the hard way.
Learn the hard way. So yeah, pretty much in alignment with him and alignment with you too on that one.
Yeah. No, I like it. Yeah. That was the last one I had. Did you have any other ones?
That was the last one on my list. But why don't we one more.
Okay.
Okay. And I think this is the last one. This was the last one on his list.
Mm-hmm.
Partial versus full range of motion, right?
Yep. Yep.
So my 2 cents on this, I guess this doesn't have to be a super long one, but
Mm-hmm.
my 2 cents is if you're comparing the two, partial reps versus full range of motion. And I think that if you wanted to make an argument that one could be more lucrative for muscle growth than the other, you'd have to specify that when we're talking about partial reps, we're talking about lengthened
Lengthened.
partials.
Mm-hmm.
Lengthened partials, and that's been one of the reasons why I think this is worth talking about is because this has been over the last 2 years been a huge fad in the fitness world, is all the hype around lengthened partials, and I've definitely been really interested in it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that still full range of motion reps still beat lengthened
Yeah.
partials when
Yeah.
compared in isolation, and that the best application of lengthened partials would be like for me, my personal preference is like at the end of a set. So for
Yes.
example, with bicep curls, you finish absolutely as many reps as you possibly can with full range of motion, and then maybe you can squeeze out 1, 2, 3, 4 more partial
Mm-hmm.
reps at the end of the set. That's my favorite practical application of using lengthened partials. But doing something like 3 full sets of just half reps, I probably wouldn't. That personal preference, I wouldn't want to. I think Dr. Milo Wolf did like a full training, like a full year or at least many
Of
months of
partials.
training, partials. Yeah.
Interesting. Was it like
Uh,
Jeff Nippert and he didn't make any gains after a year?
yeah, I can't remember but Milo Wolf has a good physique. He's not like the top level natural bodybuilder, but I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
that if you just trained with full range of motion full range of motion reps, like I think you would have got the same, if not maybe a little bit better of a result. But anyways, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
No, I tend to agree. I think it ties into like the proper form because in my mind, proper form is full range of motion, right? So it's like I'm going to do that as much as possible. And at the end, only because I can't get the weight because I've gone to failure, I'm going to do some length of partials. I'm going to do some partials. I'm going to do some cheat reps. I'm going to do like whatever I need to do to optimize and get more. Like I'm going to push myself more than just stopping. Like I think a half rep, a partial is better than no rep. Like we're still doing something. Um, and again, I think it's a mental. There's so much of this, at least for me, for my training, that I get that high on the pushing hard, sweating like extra, feeling that burn on the muscle, that extra stretch, or just a little bit like, oh, like I don't know, just something about that makes me just love the gym even more. Until you look over and your gym partner's like, your technique's trash. It's like, oh no, like, did you not see the beginning of the set? But yeah, when I see someone just start out, I'm just like, what are we doing? What with half repping or partials and stuff like that. But they also might and everything, we say all this too, but like if you have a injury or there's something or you're training for specific things, I think that makes sense. Like if whatever something's not feeling right when you do it, maybe then you should do a partial, or maybe you should do a different exercise of not the top 6. So I think not anything in a vacuum. There's reasons to deviate for whatever, and you can still make some progress. But again, not optimal, like we're talking about. So
Context
yeah,
dependent. That's a good point.
yeah. Yeah, I think we covered all of them, the 21 or 22. I don't know how many it was. Someone will have to go count when you watch the video. Yeah, and I think what we realized is Jeff from athlean-x is wrong, specifically on you cannot recover building muscle. It's not the most important part of building muscle. But overall, for me, I think I agreed with most of his stuff. I was actually pretty impressed with the video. I think you made some pretty good points. Yeah, do you have any other kind of wrap-up comments on it? Anything we forgot to talk about or anything about that?
I think that was a good summary. I'm on the same page as you. I pretty much agreed with 95% of what you talked about. So,
and for everyone out there, since Jeff is wrong on something and Sam and I were right, check out Sam's latest video where he talked about 5 muscle growth techniques for the last 20 years you've learned. So the real expert is right here. So go check out that video.
5 important truths I learned from 20
Yes.
years of lifting weights for muscle
Yes.
growth.
There we go.
I'll link
Love
that
it.
below.
There
Sweet.
we go.
Well, thanks for this, Zach.
Definitely. Thank you.